Hello everyone, this is Genius Yoshi, and today we're going to be building and playing Frozen Steel, a deck centered around the Queen herself, Elsa, Spirit of Winter. So Elsa, Spirit of Winter is a super expensive card, 8-drop, non-inkable, 4/6, shift 6, quest for 3, lots of stats just thrown into the air. She's fairly powerful. When you play her, exert up to 2 chosen character, and they can't ready at the start of their next turn, which is a typical freeze ability. They're just stuck there and they can't do anything. The ability is very powerful, the stats line is very powerful. What worries me about this card is the cost. So let's see just how good she can do in this list. We're going to be playing 3 copies of her because, again, super expensive, non-inkable. I can't afford to get stuck with too many copies of her in my hand at once, or I will lose the game with nothing to play. 3 copies feels like a good amount for a highlighted card in this deck. So, why are we playing Steel with it? It's because Steel has removal, and Amethyst has the card draw. So, some of the strongest cards in Amethyst are still... Where's the card draw by excellence? There you are. Friends on the other side. So I'll be playing 4 copies of that. We will also be playing 4 copies of Maleficent. Because we want to reach that 8 ink, we need either ramp or card draw. So we keep on having a steady stream of cards to put in our ink pool. We also have the Queen in Amethyst. Fairly solid draw card. And now we've kind of built draw, Big Elsa. Okay. What else do we have in Amethyst? Well, we have Maleficent, the 1/1 quest for 2. But we don't really have access to Simba. And we're aiming at a super high-end curve. So Maleficent is not what we're looking for this deck. Same can be said about Pascal. Great at trying to win the game. Not so great at trying to stay alive. So then we look a little higher. Actually, then the 2 drops. There's Facilier, which I don't overly like. Archimedes, which I don't overly like. And then we're at 3 drops. So at this point, I'm looking for a side color that has some early plays. And Steel has some very nice early plays. Steel has access to Captain Hook. Steel has access to Prince Eric, which we will include in this deck. But then also looking a little higher up in the curve, we have access to Mickey Mouse and Brooms, nice little combo. We have Zeus, which can kind of act as removal. Marshmallow if we're going very combat heavy removal, but Marshmallow is non-inkable 6-drop, and I don't want to have 2 non-inkable big beaters. So I want inkable cards. And as I look up here, I see no removal that I really want to play in Amethyst. Actually, Amethyst is very low in removal and good early game cards. But do you know which ink is really good in removal and early game cards? Steel. Which is why we're going to be playing Steel, Amethyst, Elsa type of deck, which is going to be removal and control heavy. In particular, Elsa, Spirit of Winter is a control-ish card, because she quests for a lot and she stuns or freezes 2 of her opponent's characters. So I'll be including 4 copies of that Captain Hook. It's best in class as the 1-drop for control-ish purposes. It can just sit there, not quest, and wait for the perfect opportunity to bam, snipe an opponent. Same with Prince Eric. Prince Eric, really nice, can also take out Simba and live to tell the tale. As a 2-drop, that's a pretty good deal. And then we move up the chain. If we're playing Steel, might as well be playing some of this big Steel cards. We're going to be playing Tinkerbell, very strong control, kind of a smallish removal. The 1 damage to everything deals a bunch of damage. She has solid stats, and whenever she defeats a character in a challenge, she pings something for 2. Very good for control, very solid overall. So Tinkerbell gets an instant inclusion. The best removal spell that we have access to is Grab Your Sword. So we're going to be playing 3 copies of Grab Your Sword. You can argue for 4 copies. You can argue for 3. It's a non-inkable high-costed card, so I'm going to go for 3. Again, mostly my fear of Elsa stuck in hand is keeping me from putting too many copies of these. In the same way, we will not be playing A Whole New World because it's non-inkable, it's expensive, and if I'm playing a bunch of expensive cards, and I'm already playing a significant amount of draw, then playing A Whole New World to get a whole new set of hand to play the cards one at a time is going to be way too slow. So this is not the deck where you shine. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Beasts simply to fill out our inkable slot with 5 to 7 drops. And then we probably take a step back. Then we look. We have good 1 drop, good 2 drop, draw spell 3, we have 5s. We need some 4 drops, and I'd like a bit more removal. Well, here's removal. Fire the Cannon. Strong early game play. Acts as a removal spell, good for taking out pesky Lilos or cheap Maleficents. And its partner in crime, Captain Hook, Captain of the Jolly Roger, sorry. Keep getting the name mistaken with the candies. So, Captain Hook picks up the Fire the Cannon. He's also 4-drop, which our deck was looking for. So now we have this curve. Nice 1-drop. We'll play the lone 2-drop because we really want to save our card. So if I have to skip turn 2, or turn 1 for the matter, I'm okay with that. Because we want to reach these high impact late game cards. And not playing a card during 1 turn allows me to put that card in the ink pool later on. We do have the tools to come back in terms of tempo with Grab Your Sword, Tinkerbell, and the Captain Hook Fire the Cannons combo. So at this point, we're really looking for bigger drops, inkable cards. I'd like another 4-drop here, and maybe even another 3. So in terms of removal, we have Smash. So you can play 4 copies of Smash. Good removal spell, inkable 3-drop. A little heavy on the 3-drops now, but this we mostly want to sing. So this is a 0-drop that's an opportunity card that's going to replace itself with more ink most of the time. Cards of consideration here. Hans, 4-drop, fantastic. Deal some damage. Quest for 2. 4 copies, more than a consideration. It's an inclusion here. We can consider Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell also would allow us to get rid of the extra Elsas if they do get stuck in hand. So she is a good consideration. But I think in this case I'm going to go with the flavor picks. And add 4 copies of Elsa Snow Queen. She's a little redundant in our 3-drop spot, but also acts as a good control-ish, somewhat removal type of card once we have these big payoffs into play. And I'll be playing 2 copies of Elsa Queen Regent, mostly for flavor and also as an opportunity to play the big Elsa on top of the Queen Regent so we can get her out a little earlier and kind of jumping out of that big 8 cost. Now if I look in 5 to 6 drops inkable, which is the remaining sweet spot, Sorceress is an interesting one. Solid stats. Can actually wall Tinkerbell pretty well. But I'm going to go with my favorite at the moment of whatever's left, which is Tekka Heartless. Just solid stats, decent ability, 6-drop inkable. It's going to get in the ink pool most of the time, but I'm happy to draw it late game. And there we have our deck. Strong early game, strong removal, card draw, Elsa flavor, because we love the Elsas. Tinkerbell for power, more card draw, Hans, and there's a deck list. I guess the only thing remaining is to see this deck and the Elsas in action with some games coming right up. Let's see what we can do with our Elsa deck. Pair of queens. It's pretty good in most card games. Lorcana, actually decent as well. We have a big Captain Hook, which we're sending back. Grab Your Swords, we'll send back as well. Queen, we have 1, 3, 4. we'll keep one queen. Either we ink her or we get to play her, depending on what we draw. Alright, have a good curve. We're on the draw. Let's start by inking. I also have the Elsa on 4. Let's start by inking the beast. It's its main purpose anyways. I'll drop a hook and pass the turn to our opponent. Captain Hook. Forceful Duelist. Doesn't actually force combat, but when he does and he's on the offensive, can punch way ahead of his weight because he gets to become a 3-point attacker. And also the 2 willpower is pretty great. It means that he can take down a Lilo or a 1-drop Maleficent and live to tell the tale. Opponent inks a Minnie Mouse, so at least some amber coloring and a Stitch. So we know the opponent is playing some kind of Stitch aggro strategy. Mostly because of this 1-drop Stitch. We need to figure out what we're going to be doing with this hand. Well, I have a pair of 3-drops. I do want to get rid of this Stitch. For sure. I'm not sure I need the Prince Eric. And I do like... We do have Grab Your Sword. Or I'm going to ink Prince Eric and pass the turn here. It's a little bit wasteful time-wise. But if our opponent shifts a big Stitch on this Stitch, we can be in a bad position. So I really want to fire off that smash next turn. And I'd like to drop Maleficent or Elsa on turn 4. Opponent inks. I should have been paying more attention there. I think it was a steel card. Opponent plays Lilo. Lilo. Alright. And we have the perfect answer for Lilo. Lilo. So we don't need to smash here. Opponent decided to let us take it down with our Captain Hook. So we'll just play the card draw Maleficent. Making sure we have the fuel to play Grab Your Sword, which will take down of the Lilos. We're also pretty close to casting it. So you have 3-drop Maleficent, 2/2. When you play her, draw a card. And we are facing down a very annoying pair of Lilos. Questers for 2. Now, if the opponent sets it up this way, we will use Maleficent to take down the Lilo. I would rather have Hans on the battlefield than Elsa here. So I'm going to ink Elsa, play Hans, pass the turn back. Hans allows us to deal that extra point of damage after or before Grab Your Sword, which will act as a complete board wipe. 3/3 for 4, quests for 2, and whenever it quests, we may deal 1 damage to a chosen character. So the opponent's been inking Tinkerbell. So 2 Tinkerbells have been played. Opponent shifts into Big Stitch. Ooh, that's a really nice move. So the opponent played Big Stitch here, using the shift mechanic, and because Stitch was shifted, the opponent was able to sing a whole new world off of Stitch. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Which also completely destroys our game plan. So now we have to adjust. Have a whole new hand. We still have a Grab Your Sword, but the opponent is going to flood the board with 1-drops and 2-drops on their turn. So we need to keep Grab Your Sword available. The other option is we just take out Stitch right now, because the opponent did exert it. We could challenge Stitch and then play Grab Your Sword. But it's not exactly the play I want to make. Instead, I'm going to ink Hook. And for 5, we don't have a nice 5 play. Now the opponent isn't going to want to trade with Hans. We don't want to give too much to our opponent. So I think we just played a hook as a big character here. And ping something with Hans. Let's ping the Lilo just because it's the heavier quester. And we'll pass the turn back. Maybe I should have just played Friends on the Other Side, sing it with Hans, hope to draw into a 5-drop. Play the 5-drop so I can sing Grab Your Sword next turn. I'm basically trying to telegraph to my opponent that I don't have Grab Your Sword, which is another thing which I'm actually intending on doing. So I'm acting like I need to deal with these small characters. Stitch Rockstar. Most people are probably familiar with this card just because it's super flashy and one of the first cards revealed, but I'm going to go over it anyways. A 3/5 for 6 can be shifted on top of Mini Stitch, and whenever you play a character, you will play it exerted to draw a card, with the effect being optional. But if you're playing Stitch, you expend on going after the card draw. Ooh, and there's a Rapunzel. So, opponent is drawing 3 cards off of Rapunzel, targeting Stitch. That is a lot of cards. So you can fight Stitch and play Grab Your Sword. But if we do that, they're not in a much better spot. I really want to sing Grab Your Sword. So I'm going to have to ink one of these cards. Let's ink Maleficent. We have enough cards here, and we want to reach 8 ink to actually play Elsa. And we can play Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell's pretty strong play here, gets rid of Minnie and Lilo. So we can't beat our opponent off of card advantage, so we're going to try and beat them on the board with a powerhouse giant fairy. And I don't overly like the attack here, so I might as well just sing Friends on the Other Side, draw some cards. I said we're not going to try to beat our opponent on card advantage, but we still need to draw some cards here. Or still kind of a good play. Drawing cards is good. What is our opponent going to do here? Opponent on 36 card in their deck, which Rapunzel and Stitch and a whole new world. It's something we need to keep track of. The opponent could run out of cards, although the opponent can quest for a whole lot next turn. Opponent just using Stitch's ability, playing 1-drops, and drawing cards. Draw, draw, draw. Which is why we really needed to keep our grab your sword. Ooh, the Simba here is going to play quite in our favor, because we're going to be able to challenge it with Tinkerbell, taking only 2 points of damage. Deal the 2 points of damage to Stitch off of her ability, if that's what we want. It's probably what we have to do. I still want to sing it, but I can't. Yeah, I have to go with that play. We board wipe our opponent, leaving them with nothing, and we'll set up the double Spirit of Winter play for next turn. So we're going to ink a small Elsa. We are going to challenge and take out Simba, dealing 2 damage to Stitch Rockstar off of her ability. We are going to cast Grab Your Sword, dealing 2 damage to our full opponent's board. And then we are going to proceed by taking out our opponent's questers, Rapunzel, passing the turn back. So now the opponent at least needs to set a new stitch before comboing off, or playing a whole new world, which it would seem would go in our advantage on an empty board. So grab your sword, just deal 2 damage to each opposing character. Super strong card, especially since Steel already has a lot of ways of dealing damage. You can control the damage with Tinkerbell's multiple abilities. You can control the damage with Hans, and you can control the damage with combat, and put all of that into your advantage. So now our opponent's options are playing a whole bunch of stuff to the board, but with Hook and Tinkerbell we can take out some of that. We can also land a big Elsa to exert a few characters, or go Elsa Queen to just add more board presence. The opponent can also try to go big, something like a big Stitch on the board. Opponent plays Hades, picking up small Stitch from the discard pile to then place it back into play. Really like Hades, just very good card advantage. When you play it, pick a character from your discard pile, put it into your hand. In this particular scenario, it plays quite favorably for us. But the opponent's entire plan here is set up a Stitch so he can play Stitch Rockstar next turn and put us in a terrible spot. But we're not going to let that happen. I might want that Hans. Although we have a nice 8 here with Elsa and the Queen next turn. So I'm going to ink Hans. And we are going to get it. We are going to get a very good usage of Elsa Snow Queen. So Spirit of Winter, sorry. The strong Elsa. Because we get to exert Baby Stitch, which means we get to take out Baby Stitch, and the opponent's entire game plan for next turn is thrown off the board. And then we can quest for 1 or draw cards. Alright, let's draw cards. Fire the Cannon, also a good pickup here. Elsa, Spirit of Winter, doing some work, helping us stay alive. Now the opponent's also playing Steel, so we have to be somewhat careful that the opponent could be playing the 2 damage to everything. Grab your sword, which our opponent just picked off from Ariel. Spectacular Singer. Ariel, Spectacular Singer, Singer 5. Alright. What do we do here? So we have to worry about Grab Your Sword. That's item number 1. We have to worry about the opponent shifting a Stitch. And we can play another Spirit of Winter, which is probably the play here. So play Spirit of Winter, get the Stitch exerted as well as whoever quests for the most. Ariel sings for 5, so Ariel could sing the swords, which we don't want. So we'll get rid of these 2. Find one with Tinkerbell, deal with the other one using the ability. And we can quest with the rest. Try to apply some pressure. Then we have a high amount of questers on the battlefield. And the opponent's starting to be dwindling on cards a little bit here. Do we have time to set up anything else? I don't think so. So we're going to play the Elsa. Exerting these 2. Then Elsa will fight... Ooh, no, not Elsa. I just explained the game plan. Tinkerbell is going to fight Ariel. And with the ability, deal 2 damage to Stitch. Again, Elsa doing some heavy lifting here for us in this super late game position. I can't play anything else. I have a nice 8 here and a nice 8, 5, 1, 2, so I don't think I should ink anything. So I'm going to begin questing to try and apply a bit of pressure on our opponent. I'm very afraid that the opponent's going to slap 6 1-drops on the battlefield. Yeah, grab your sword, we know is one card our opponent has. Not overly useful in this board state. Our Elsas have too much willpower. Not overly worried about Tinkerbell's ability here, just improving our opponent's hand. Okay, opponent forced to play grab your sword. Not what they want to play. Tinkerbell deals a bit of damage, which means their opponent thinks they're on the back foot. Inks a Stitch, Lord of Surf. So our opponent's stuck with somewhat powerful cards. Ah, that's why. Rapunzel strikes again. Whew, these Rapunzels hurt. Just fully healing that Tinkerbell and drawing 3 cards. It's just awesome. But now the tables have mostly turned, and if we quest with both Elsas, we go to 12, and we have a lot more questing power on the battlefield. So if we quest for 6, 12, we have 6. We need 2 more for next turn to threaten lethal. And for 8, well, I don't have that many choices. I'm going to go for the Queen and Elsa, because Elsa gives us a bit more control in terms of option than Maleficent. I would rather have the option of exerting an opponent's character if our opponent quests for 3 and then, well, our opponent needs to deal with our board, first of all. But Elsa, small Elsa, what's her title? Snow Queen. Spirit of Winter and Snow Queen. So the Snow Queen allows us to deal with an opponent's character if they decide to just trade and play another sword card. I don't know what our opponent can have at this point that would deal with our board and force us on the offensive. But our opponent definitely needs to deal with what we have, because we have lethal, 3, 6, 7, 8. Actually, we have lethal on the dot. So opponent doesn't need to do that much. That Rapunzel is likely to quest up to 15. It's a pretty close game. And I must say, very happy with Elsa Spirit of Winter in this particular game. But the game needs to go the distance, and it needs to be a close game. Opponent plays Stitch Rockstar. Still got to deal with my threats. Opponent plays inks a Tinkerbell. Can you deal 4? A smash is good enough if you smash Elsa. Yeah, our opponent needs smash level of damage. Opponent plays Hades, and that will be game in our favor. With the Elsa's Spirit of Winter questing their way to victory. The opponent's large amount of card draw with the double, triple draw Rapunzel, the Stitch Rockstar, the double Hades, the aerials, just not enough to deal with the amount of pressure and removal from Elsa, Spirit of Winter, and a bunch of very powerful steel cards that did most of the work. But awesome game. Elsa for the win. And there we have it. Alright, let's see what we have here. We have a lot of 3s. That's a lot of 3-drops. Fire the Cannon's good, especially since we're going second. Kind of like the Maleficent Friends on the other side. Smash gives us a variety of options. Maybe we'll just send 1 Elsa back. That's a fairly decent hand. We can ink an Elsa, ink a Beast, and depends on what we draw. Draw a Tekka. Okay. Opponent inks a hook, so steel for our opponent. And it's Lilo who enters the fray. Lilo, the 1/1 of Doom that quests for 2. Thankfully we have the perfect answer for Lilo. We will not let her quest as we fire the cannon to take her out. Fire the cannon, just deal 2 damage to chosen character. Very straightforward, very effective. The only downside is that we can't ink it. Then again, we are playing some Captain Hooks to pick it back up from the discard pile. Opponent inks a smash. Our opponent is amethyst-steel, going with a LeFou. So playing a very aggressive line over here. I don't expect to see a lantern. They probably want to keep some of the reactive smashing. So plan is to go Maleficent on turn 3, then Sing and Smash, or Smash and Challenge. Do we need the double smash? I don't think we need the double smash. Smash is going to fall off relatively soon. And we're going to pass the turn here. It feels a little bad not playing anything on turn 2, but it's partially by design for the deck. So LeFou has some effect about Gaston that doesn't really come into play. It's really just a 1/2 quest for 2. Opponent plays another copy of Lilo, as well as another LeFou. So our opponent really wants to apply pressure here. I think we can ink a Tekka, because it's pretty expensive at this point, and I really want to have something on the board to deal with these characters. Maleficent is nice to draw the extra card, but for now I'm going to settle with the Elsa, because I think that extra willpower is going to help us. It's not her best use. Elsa is not made for pure combat and keeping her opponent in check, but her opponent already has 6 questing power on the battlefield, which is quite threatening. So we need to put that in check. The opponent might have a Musketeer card to play here, possibly. At first our opponent quests for 6, going up all the way to 8. Ooh, and then sacrifices tempo with a Beast's Mirror, fire the cannon to Elsa. And we get a very good top deck. So we get our own copy of Fire the Cannons. And here we get the double spell. So we can play Fire the Cannon as well as Maleficent, or we can Smash and Maleficent. We can just clean out our opponent's board. The question is that what we want to do? Elsa is pretty valuable with her freeze ability. She's going to prevent any kind of shenanigans our opponent can pull. So at this point, I'm not sure I want to sacrifice Elsa here. I'm pretty sure I want to play Maleficent and fire the cannon. Or if I smash, fire the cannon, and then sing Friends on the Other Side, drawing a few cards. Maleficent does apply extra pressure here. So we're going to go with that. We're going to ink Elsa, the 4-drop. We're going to fire the cannon and take out Lilo, which now that I think about it, it's a mistake because the LeFous are just better at this point. We're going to play our Maleficent. We will draw the card. Ooh, that's interesting. Grab your sword. Lesson learned. Always draw the card first. And I should have known better. We're going to sing Friends on the Other Side with Elsa, because at this point we have the grab your sword, which is going to blow out our opponent's board. So I guess I can show off some of the cards played. Maleficent 2/2 draws a card. Opponent inks an Ariel here. Beast's Mirror is going to allow our opponent to draw some cards once their hand is empty. So pay 3 if you have no cards in your hand, draw a card. As the opponent played another Fire the Cannon to deal with our Maleficent. So now we have the very solid ink something, grab your sword. Or you can hardcast a beast. Taking out Beast's Mirror is also pretty important, but I don't think we can afford it right now. So I'm going to ink one of the beasts, wipe our opponent, because I can't sing it with Elsa, and since Elsa's on the battlefield, might as well quest. Grab your sword, just one of the cards that you should fear if you're playing against steel. A 4-costed song deals 2 damage to everything your opponent has, reminiscent of Regeki if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh player. Of course, not that strong because only hits whatever has 2 health or less, but still deals significant damage to those. Opponent plays a 4-drop Donald. 2/5 Bodyguard, which gives your Musketeer evasive. That's okay, but at this point, we need to deal with that Beast's Mirror. So we're going to play Beast, almost for sure. Taking out his Mirror, out of rage, just smashing things. And that's the awesomeness of playing some Beasts in our deck. We don't need dedicated hate for the card. I do want to keep Tinkerbell. I'll need to ink something to play Tinkerbell next turn. That's 4 plus the Tink damage. So yeah, I'll ink a Smash preemptively, play the Captain Hook, and pass the turn. Just to be ink efficient. So Beast, just being the 4/4, enters the battlefield. Banish an item. Quest for 2, pretty strong. And our opponent top decks a whole new world. Now that's a top deck. That's a very good top deck for our opponent. Both players discarding their hands and drawing a fresh new hand of 7 cards. Where is part of your world? Over here. Then the opponent plays the Captain Hook. But our board is pretty solid. So here, what do we have? We have another Grab Your Sword, which I would rather keep for next turn, because I expect our opponent is going to be playing a flurry of 1-drops. Unfortunately, don't have anything really nice to deal with that Donald Duck. I have a Tekka, Elsa, friends on the other side. Pair of Erics. It's pretty good. I don't really need to deal with everything. I guess I could play Grab Your Sword, sing it with the Beast, challenge, and develop my board. Maybe that's the play after all. Just because I have the capabilities of singing it, I can take out the Hook, which is a bit of a threat. I can train my Hook for Donald. Then I want to apply pressure on the board. Since I'm going to have an Elsa, might as well quest with her. And what's the best way to apply pressure here? I can 7. So I can ink a Prince Eric. And then go Eric Queen or probably Maleficent Elsa. Keeping the card advantage going. Just putting bodies on the board. And that's kind of the downside of our opponent playing a whole new world in that situation. Because our opponent had to use all their ink for it, and they were behind on board, we get the first turn to play that pretty strong hand of cards. Now the only thing is if the opponent has a flurry of 1-drops, we might be hard pressed to deal with them all. But we do have an Elsa, which can force a combat at the very least. The common Snow Queen, 2/3, can just freeze a character. Opponent's forcing us to discard 2. We'll discard a Prince Eric and a Beast. Mufasa has spoken. An opponent plays Ariel, digging for a song. It's not a card I see very often. You have forgotten me. Really, I have forgotten about you card. But now with Elsa, we get to exert the aerial and take a good combat. I'm going to combat with the beast just in case we hit our bigger Elsa. We'll play friends on the other side with Maleficent because it's mostly free. Then we get to apply more pressure. Tekka and Hook. And Quest for 1 with the small Elsa. Beatstick Elsa, as I like to call her. And now we have Tekka on the battlefield. 5/5, Quest for 2. And whenever we banish another character, we gain 2 lore. And this is one of these cards, Elsa, that allows us to come back from behind. So here, You've Forgotten Me takes out 2 more cards from our hand. I'll keep the Queen instead of Tinkerbell, just because she allows us to draw a whole bunch of cards. But it's kind of odd because Ariel's digging for another part of your world, or a whole new world, both world songs. I also want to be careful that our opponent doesn't have a Grab Your Sword as well. So in Amber Steel, our opponent should only have ways of dealing 2 or 3 points of damage. Our opponent cannot be playing Be Prepared, so we don't need to worry about that. So instead of distributing the damage between our characters, it's beneficial if we stack the damage on certain characters, which is why I'm not attacking with Tekka here, even though I'd gain 2 lore in the exchange. I want to keep a healthy spread of characters. And we'll use the Queen to refuel our resources as a 4/5. Really just exert her, draw a card. There it is, Grab Your Sword. Opponent takes out our characters, but the Queen and Tekka are going to be pretty hard to take out. We will draw. We will replace. Actually, we'll keep on placing threats, forcing our opponent to either have, I don't know what our opponent can have. A pair of Grab Your Swords is probably not good enough. 1 Grab Your Sword leaves Tekka and the Queen and our 2 new threats alive. So we'd quest for 5. So our opponent sees the writing on the wall and decides to resign. And that's it for our Frozen Steel deck. Let's see if we can get Elsa Spirit of Winter in play this game. We did have a fairly extensive game last time, but we just didn't draw into her. So I have the almost perfect 1/2/3, Fire the Cannons, Eric Maleficent, Double Queen Tinkerbell, just all inkables. Our hand doesn't get much better sending anything back, so I think we're just going to keep this. Going second again. On the draw. Opponent inks a Duke of Weaselton. So there's some amethyst shenanigans going on. We'll start by inking a Queen. And we might as well play Captain Hook since it's the only thing we can play. Captain Hook being quite a menacing 1-drop. At least when he's challenging. He turns into a 3/2 on the attack. Very good at taking out, well, Cheshire Cat in this matchup. But also Lilo. Fairly good at taking out Cruella, actually. I wonder if I can force my opponent into bouncing back at 3-drop Maleficent. Let's see what Cruella says. Is it a you may? Yes, you may return chosen character. Okay, so it's optional. So we can't actually force our opponent to return a character into our hand. Cruella is kind of a slow inker, so we can just let her do her thing. And it's only when she's challenged and banished. Third, Duke of Weaselton, hitting the ink pile for our opponent. And we have the Iron Start with Captain Hook, as well as Prince Eric. Prince Eric just becomes a 3/3 on the offense. At this point, I have to play the Maleficent. I want to keep friends on the other side, which means I'm going to ink the Queen, keeping Tinkerbell at the disposal. We'll play Maleficent if the opponent decides to bounce her. I am quite happy with that. It is unlikely to happen though. I'm going to quest with Prince Eric and challenge Cruella with Hook. So if Cruella sends Hook back, it's very beneficial for us. If Cruella sends Eric back, well, we've already quested with it. But it's probably our opponent's best option at this point. Sending Maleficent back is just bad for our opponent. Opponent makes the right choice. So we'll pass the turn back to our opponent. Maleficent 2/2 for 3. Whenever you play her, draw a card. Simple, effective. Opponent inks in Hercules. So what do we have to worry about? We have to worry about Grab Your Sword, because our opponent's playing Steel, and Emerald doesn't have much in terms of removal. It's mostly bounce, Genie on the Job, among other things. So here I'm going to be singing Friends on the Other Side with Maleficent, which is a good chunk of her purpose. Hans is solid play here. We could also go double Eric, but I don't like double Eric as much. I prefer Hans. Hans also survives Grab Your Sword. There's no point questing with Captain Hook. I don't want to leave it open to Hans. We both have Hans on the battlefield. Our opponent's is the inferior one, who quests for a ton. So it's really just a vanilla 3/3 quests for 3, which is a lot. Opponent does play Grab Your Sword, dealing 2 damage to everything, and our Hans survive as we wanted. Hans now with 1 hit point can quest and ping our opponent's Hans. And as we wanted, we get to ink Eric, fire the cannons to take out our opponent's Hans, and pick it back up with a Captain Hook. Good old combo with Hook and fire the cannon. Fire the cannon just deals 2 damage to anything, and Captain Hook, Captain Jolly Roger, 3/4 quests for 1, picks it back up from the discard pile. Very specific combination, but with the 7-card mulligan, Captain Hook triggers relatively often. Opponent drops in a Cusco. Cusco's an annoying card to deal with, but not as bad for Steel. So it's a 2/4 with ward, so we can't specifically target it. And if we challenge it, our opponent challenges the banishing character. We don't have any challenge here. Our opponent doesn't have a good combat. Well, we can't actually target it with Hans. So we're just going to quest. Normal questing. We want a Tinkerbell next turn. So we're going to ink a Hans, because we'll need a 6th ink for Tinkerbell next turn anyways. I'll play Maleficent. Draw a card. Play Elsa. Spend all our ink and pass the turn back to our opponent. And now we have Elsa. The small Elsa, but still freezing the opponent's character is pretty good. Opponent quests with Cusco, questing for 3. And our opponent has a Mother Gothel in play. Now that thing is a bit of a pain. When she's exerted, we can't quest. Alright. So here's what we're planning here. I want to use either Tinkerbell or Grab Your Sword to take out Cusco, because that won't trigger its ability. We can ping Mother Gothel for 1 with Hans. We need a bit more points of damage. So actually my Hans is almost dead. So I think I'm going to send Hans to challenge Cusco. Hans goes away. Then we get to Tink, which will take out Cusco. Tinkerbell, potentially the strongest card in the game. Whenever she enters the play, just deal 1 damage to all your opponent's character. A mini Grab Your Sword. And whenever we banish a character in challenge, we deal 2 damage to the opposing character. And here we just want a quest. And we might as well play Friends on the Other Side. We'll sing it, so it doesn't cost us any ink. And I want to keep Elsa alive, because Elsa is just very powerful. Play Elsa for her ability, not for her combat potential. And Friends on the Other Side, during the original playtesting when we were playing proxies and only some cards of the set were released, was deemed one of the strongest card, if not the strongest card in Lorcana, and poised for dominating the metagame. With the full set reveal, that's not quite true. There's other powerful draw engines, but its strength remains. Friends on the Other Side is a powerful card. Ooh, that's different. A big beater comes in for our opponent. Legendary beater. John Silver. 5/5, quest for 2. Whenever you play, whenever you quest, opposing character gains Reckless. So Elsa's going to have to combat this turn. Well, not really. Elsa's going to have to go to combat if and only if there's something to challenge, but we have so many other characters. We can just deal with the Mother Gothel before. I want Tink to take out Mother Gothel. I can keep Captain Hook alive. So I'll fight Mother Gothel with Hook. I'll take out Mother Gothel, deal 2 to John Silver. Off of her ability, we will smash it to take it out. And at this point, I don't know, our hand's super strong. Nah, then there's no real reason to play anything here. I'll just pass the turn. Unless our opponent plays a whole new world, in which case we have a board of 4 characters and a fully stocked hand. I don't think our opponent has anything to come back from this. And that's basically saying if our opponent has the perfect card, our opponent's still doomed. And our opponent sees it and decides to resign, as the Tinkerbell and Elsa's just dominate the board with Steel's removal and Amethyst's draw spells. Alright, let's go again. I have yet to even draw Elsa, Spirit of Winter, which makes it pretty hard to play with her as the highlight card. We have a Prince Eric and we're going first, and that's good enough for me. I want to keep a good enough amount of inkables, but I do want the opportunity to draw into a better curve, like turn 1 Hook. Double smash is too much, so we're going to ink 1 and drop Hook as we pass the turn to our opponent. And the game begins anew as the Steel players stare at each other with Captain Hooks. I don't think I'm going to need that smash here. Have enough of these hard pressing characters. So I'll drop the Prince Eric on turn 2 as the tempo play. Just keeping playing cards, really. Just a 1/3 challenger, Not overly good when our opponent is playing challengers too. Which means that if I quest with Hook, our opponent's Hook can trade too well with ours. And yeah, okay. Opponent plays Simba. Doesn't even bother to exert it for the bodyguard ability. I don't really want this extra Hook here. I do want to play Elsa, but in this situation it's quite awkward in singing Friends on the Other Side with her. So I'm going to just cast it and see if I can find better cards. No, I think singing it is probably still the play. Alright, we'll play Elsa and pass the turn. It just spending an entire turn just drawing the cards puts us behind on the board. But Elsa's a little suboptimal here to sing it because Hook can trade with Elsa, and having our opponent trade their 1-drop for a 3-drop is not where we want to be. Then again, maybe we don't have to sing it next turn. Maybe we can use Elsa's ability, exert Hook, take it out, double bodyguard. And now our opponent is in a weird spot. Opponent chooses not to exert Hercules, which is a fine decision. But that means that we get a good trade on Hook. But the math here is a little odd. I think I want to force exert the Hercules and take it out with Hook, actually. So then if the opponent fights Elsa, Simba is an even trade and Hook trades. So we've traded our 3-drops, we've traded our 1-drops. And I have the tempo of playing a card right now. I can't see really our opponent playing any artifact or item, so I'm going to exert Beast. I want to play that Elsa. That Elsa's most likely going to sing Friends on the Other Side. Oh, is there a reason to go for it? Our opponent's about to hit 4 ink. I don't think so. I don't think we go for it. Let's just pass the turn. Because our opponent's not going to be playing Grab Your Sword this turn. Maybe our opponent has like a smash, but what's our opponent going to do on 4 on Amber-steel? Inca Cerberus, that is. Because our opponent's Hercules and Simba are really just bodyguards or vanilla characters as long as they're unexerted. Okay, opponent decides to just quest with everything. Oh, and we've lost a Hook. Okay, opponent had to fire the cannons. So opponent fired a cannon, took out our Hook, and leaves themselves super open for combat. This was a bad move. There's no ways around it. Eric can take out Hercules, swinging against a 3-3. Elsa can take out Simba, and Elsa can take out Hook with minimal damage. And because we've gained such a big tempo swing on the board, we get to actually just hard cast Friends on the Other Side and be quite happy about it, as we'll Inca Beast and pass the turn back. And now what we are left with is 3 copies of Tinkerbell. As the opponent plays Grab Your Sword. We've dealt the damage and now the turn passed back to us. Grab Your Sword deals 2 damage to everything. Unfortunately, I have to ink one of the Tinkerbells because I didn't draw an inkable. I get to resolve my 4/5 to the battlefield. Opponent plays a Cerberus. That's cool. That is quite cool. Just a bigger steel creature. And that thing's stopping my Tinkerbell. Oddly enough. Where are you, Cerberus? Well, I'm going to play just Prince Eric, because I want the burst of damage from Tinkerbell and Grab Your Sword to come in next turn, Or I want our opponent to commit more to the board before I fire off the abilities. I'm not gaining quite enough in the current state. Ah, there it is. Cerberus, 5/6, quest for 1. And we find a big Elsa, Spirit of Winter, which I would really like to cast right now. I'm going to pass the turn. Nothing really good I can play here. And I want our opponent to commit more to the board. Opponent just keeps on inking cards. Okay, opponent resolves Tinkerbell. Opponent plays Grab Your Sword, singing it, taking out our Prince Eric. I want to do something similar, so I can play... I'll just resolve the Tinkerbell. Ping your characters. I don't have enough to challenge Cerberus to ping back the Tink, so I'll pass the turn back. Opponent plays a smaller version of Tinkerbell and a Hercules. And this is where holding the cards pays out. Oh, and we draw Captain Hook. Okay, so we get to play Tinkerbell, deal 1 damage to everything. Then we get to sing a Grab Your Sword, dealing 2 damage to everything. Then Tinkerbell can take out Cerberus and ping Tinkerbell in a complete blowout. That leaves us with all Tinks. Grab Your Sword, dealing 2 damage to everything. Taking out... Oh, actually, the small Tinkerbell is going to live. Oh, that's okay. I misplayed that. Cerberus had enough power to take out Tink. I should have sung with the healthy one and left the damaged Tinkerbell to die. Oops. Opponent plays a second small Tinkerbell. This is really the Tinkerbells galore. But this one's just a 2/4, quest for 1. You can discard a card to draw a card. So at this point we just begin questing. Can play a hook. Pick back up our removal. Oh no, we don't have a fire to cannon. Alright. And we're going to ink the beast. Mostly because I want to play Elsa, Spirit of Winter. She will force our opponent to exert their characters, and with the 3 quests should help us to just win the game. And then we draw another Elsa, Spirit of Winter. Alright, so we're just going to quest. Opponent doesn't have very much going on. Little fight between Tinkerbell and the Captain Hook. Ooh, that one hurts. Rapunzel, healing and drawing cards. Ouch. So Rapunzel heals 3 damage from Tinkerbell, draws 3 cards. Alright, well, let's try to end it. So we'll ink Maleficent, play Elsa, Spirit of Winter, and exert both of our opponent's characters. They're just going to race. Since they're exerted for this turn as well, maybe you can see the Spirit of Winter work her magic with Deep Freeze. So not only are they exerted, but they remain exerted for this turn as well. You're not drawing any cards, Tinkerbell. Also at 4/6, they're pretty hard to take out. Opponent plays a Captain Hook, takes back a fire to cannon, fires off the fire to cannon to Captain Hook, reducing a bit our ability to quest. And we draw the Queen. Opponent doesn't have that much in terms of combat power. Do we just quest and race? I think we do. We have 5. That brings us to 13, and then we have 8. Our opponent doesn't have any combat to deal with them. So I'll just try to end the game. Freezing the high combat character and the 2 quester. Then we have a queen as backup. Bodyguards aren't going to help you with your opponent because we can quest for 8. Our opponent reads it, and the Spirit of Winters wins us the game after the Tinkerbell mirror match of the century. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video. We've had some very awesome games, especially that game that went long where we've had to use the Spirits of Winter to get back from a difficult position after our opponent landed that very strong whole new world. This deck is very fun to play, pretty strong. I'm not sure that the Elsa's is the best version, although it's probably the most flavorful. So if you want to play an Elsa deck, I'd highly recommend this list. It's fun, it's powerful, it leads to more developed games, so it's not one of these turn 5 wins, and you can stop the early aggression quite effectively with the array of early game cards. Very fun deck to play. Again, I hope that you've enjoyed the coverage. Do like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think, what you'd like to see next, and I will see you next time.